3, 2, 1, go.
Moving on to other stories. Lexia Winifred, a fresh graduate, is serving as a youth corps member in Bauchi State. She has initiated a class furniture project for a public secondary school where students learn sitting on the floor. Her love for creating an appropriate environment for learning triggered our creativity to use recycled tires to make chairs for the pupils. Hajara Aliyu tells us more.
Here is a crude method of making seats for students. Old tricycle tire.
A total of 8 cases were slated for hearing as the FCT panel of inquiry begins sitting. The cases range from extrajudicial killing and refusal to release a corpse to denial of access to justice and intimidation. One after the other, the victims take turns to tell their story of alleged brutality by men of the Special Anti-Robbery Squad, SARS. Mrs. Doris Idedia had a peculiar case, and she alleges how
people that are stakeholders in human rights and policing activities in Nigeria. Groups like the Nigerian Bar Association will now be on the board of the Police Service Commission. The Human Rights Commission itself will be on the board. Even the Independent Corrupt Practices Commission, ICPC, we are proposing a board chairman that would his tenure will be for a fixed term of 5 years. So he's going to be fixed, and he will not be distracted with looking for reappointment.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. Ethiopia's forces have captured 2 towns in the northern region of Tigray, where soldiers loyal to the local political party are fighting the central government. Tigray's leader confirmed the losses but said it was a temporary setback and vowed to defeat the government. Ethiopia's Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has said his army is advancing on the Tigrayan capital, Mekelle. Hundreds of people have reportedly died in
it has been just this year alone we've had to combat Lassa fever, COVID-19, and now yellow fever. Well, maybe we didn't see COVID-19 coming like a lot of other countries, but for Lassa fever, yellow fever, they're not new to Nigeria's health system. I mean, the NCDC says over time, just this year alone, we've had 76 people die across 3 states as a result of this disease. But the big question is, did we see this coming? I mean, what did we miss, and how can we make it better?
The violence we saw at the end of October 2020 is the most widespread carnage the state has seen in decades. Not since the SAP riot of 1989 have we experienced such a level of destruction. Every aspect of our life and livelihood in Lagos were affected. Government buildings, offices, public monuments, historical archives.
On the 4th of March 2020, I was going to a nearby shop to buy some items. So on my way around Gaji Garden, I saw Hilos and Project 406. So in that Hilos were 6 officers. Then in that 406 was just 1 officer inside. So they arrested me and took me out.
That's the scene around the magistrate court in Yaba earlier, where there's been a disagreement between the family members and friends of the embattled EndSARS protester, Peter Ramosele. They're protesting police refusal to allow them enter into the courtroom where Ramosele is being...
Yeah.
Yes. Are you a relative of Evans? Do you know Evans?
Who is Evans?
That is Chukwudume Duneme. That is his full name. I think I can't pronounce it. Chukwudume.
While we were in court, I was looking at you. It seemed to suggest that you were praying.
Yes, I was praying because God rules in the affairs of men. And I know that the people we are dealing with, they are the generation of Herod, the generation of Pharaoh. That's what we have in this nation. So I have to call the higher power the one that rules in the affairs of men, the one that had their hearts in his hand. And I called upon him, and he answered me as always. And I'm very grateful. Thank you, Jesus.
Welcome back to Mercy Broken English. So I welcome everybody when we say it line now. I just want to tell you thank you. Say you get your time when you take come watch Mercy Broken English. So another day for Mercy Broken English don't reach. I just want to tell you how on a day. I hope say everybody day fine. And I know say I know they use that part to ask how everybody day because now my concern with that. So may we continue for Mercy Broken English. So if you never subscribe to Mercy Broken English, you know we won't miss this fantastic video when we say I will upload every week. Try to subscribe. When you subscribe, don't forget to put the notification bell because now that bell you will say no whenever I upload video on YouTube. And also thank you for joining. If you never join, don't forget to join Mercy.
On the 4th of March 2020, I was going to a nearby shop to buy some items. So on my way around Gaju Garden, I saw Hilos and Peugeot 406. So in that Hilos were 6 officers. Then in that 406 was just one officer inside. So they arrested me and took me to Mopo 13. And they took me to one small room and asked me that I should provide the items I have stolen. Then I told them that I don't know what they are talking about. So they handcuffed me and they asked me to squat down. I squat down and they put a rod across. Then they packed me up. And then they were using baton to beat me on the sensitive part of my body such as my arm and my knees. So after some time they poured fuel at my back and used lighter to ignite lights. So when it became too painful for me, I told them that they should drop me, that I'm the one that carried those things. They now asked me where I kept those things. I said they are in my house. So they dropped me from that hanger that they hanged me. So shortly after that, they still asked me that how many of us that went for the operation. I told them that I was the only person. They say it's a lie, we were 4, that I should mention their name. I say I was the only person. Then they still did the same thing. They packed me up, and then when it became too unbearable for me, I then formulated 4 names that they asked me. I called my name. I called Felix. I called the other name. I've forgotten the names that I've called. So they now asked me where about them. I say one of them work in a microfinance bank. So then they say, okay, it will be better for me if I identify those people, that they will go and arrest those people, and then the burden will not be on my head alone. Office. They now beat me back to Mopo 13. I then tell them that there's no problem. Let me lead them to where I kept those things so that they will not beat me any further. I then lead them to my house. I showed them the television that was in the room. I showed them the other item. I gave them recording camera because I'm also a producer. I render media services. I even own a media recording outfit here. So from there I gave them my recording camera. I gave them fan. I told them that the bed and everything that is inside that house, they are stolen items. Then they now ask the complainant, Yohana Hassan, that are they the property that were stolen in his house? They said, he said the television and other things that are not his own. I said they are the things I've stolen in his house. Then he said they are not the. I told them that they are not my properties. I told them that it is his own. He now said his television is Samsung set. I then told him that okay, he should wait. I know where I kept that Samsung. There's one of my younger brother that we are staying in the same compound that uses Samsung. I then lead them to the house and tell them that the fridge and other things that were inside that house, they are stolen items. Then from there they arrested him and me, and they packed everything to the police station. Then shortly after that, my brother came with all the invoices of everything that I've given them, that they are the things I've stolen. Then the police now released those things to them. Although from the things they packed from my house, I did not lose anything, but they were not stolen items. Even the man himself identified that they were not his stolen items. Even the Samsung, even that Samsung TV that I've shown him that it is his own, he brought the invoice, then they released everything. That is how a lot of innocent souls are suffering for this kind of a thing, because most of the times if these issues like this happens, the way police used to investigate is not right at all. Because you could imagine that you put fire at my back and ask me to confess to talk about something that has happened. How comfortable do you want me to say that thing? And the light was at my back. I want justice to prevail.
Moving on to other stories. Lecturer Winifred, a fresh graduate, is serving as a youth corps member in Bauchi State. She has initiated a class furniture project for a public secondary school where students learn sitting on the floor. Her love for creating an appropriate environment for learning triggered our creativity to use recycled tires to make chairs for the pupils. Hajara Aliyu tells us more.
Here is a crude method of making seats for students. Old tricycle tire sliced in half, painted and nailed on the wood. It's environmentally friendly and cost-effective method born out of the need to provide desks for learning for the pupils of Lushi Secondary School, a suburb of Bauchi.
Plastic. Folded pipe are made of what? Plastic material.
This youth corps member, Lecturer Winifred, who teaches in a private school, is behind the initiative. She mobilized funds to make 50 desks for the students who have been sitting on the floor.
I had to sit down with somebody else, one of my friends, Elisha Babali, and I spoke with him. So we had to brainstorm. In fact, we did a lot of brainstorming, and we finally came up with this. And then he's an architect, so he drew he gave me the pictorial image of it, and I was able to see, okay, it was going to look good. For the tires, I went to Muda Lawal Market. I had to go and beg for the tires. I explained what I had to do. In fact, that was my proposal. They didn't understand. I had to go with one of my friends that understands Hausa, and he interpreted for me, helped me explain what I wanted to do with tires.
With the help of a local carpenter from the community, Hamisa Hassan, the idea came to fruition. Hassan didn't charge a dime for labor. He is a member of a philanthropic group known as Lushi Youth Forum. The project was carried out during the long COVID-19 break. To their amazement, the students of the class returned to a conducive learning environment.
Let's find out from the students how comfortable they are sitting on the seat.
We are very comfortable on this seat because before we used to sit on the floor and we are not comfortable writing, and now we are very happy that we have desks.
We are very happy with that initiative, and we pray that God will bless her, and we're praying for more people, more couples to come and intervene in this aspect.
As the state government carries out massive renovation of public schools across Bauchi State, authorities of the school appeal to be included in the next phase of government project.
A total of 8 cases were slated for hearing as the FCT panel of inquiry begins sitting. The cases range from extrajudicial killing and refusal to release a corpse to denial of access to justice and intimidation.
Asked to come up.
One after the other, the victims take turns to tell their story of alleged brutality by men of the Special Anti-Robbery Squad, SARS. Mrs. Doris Idedia had a peculiar case, and she alleges how her younger brother, Felix Idehe, died in the custody of SARS and a subsequent refusal by the police to release his body to the family.
He left us, he didn't eat anything, he died on the 6th.
As she struggles with her emotions, she narrates how her late brother was arrested in Kaduna and subsequently died in police custody in Abuja.
He saw a car and the car was chasing him. He was running, he was thinking maybe they are kidnappers or something. He doesn't know why they are following him. He was running, they were chasing him. He got to a point He doesn't even know where to run to because he's new in that environment. Kingsley was now calling my brother thief, that he's a thief. So they all helped him to beat him very well. They put him behind the hillocks on the floor in the car. No mat, no mattress. He was not putting on dress on the floor and the rain. Under the rain, that day was very sunny.
I got suffered. Died in pains. There is a guy that's supposed to be in Canada. Processed his visa. He never got there.
Counsel to the police request for more time to get their facts ready for cross-examination.
That's what I want to plead with the panel. If they can avail us the opportunity, considering the sensitive Kingsley. I would not know the full name until I come in contact with him.
You will not cross-examine today. No cross-examination today.
That's what I'm pleading. I'm pleading so that let's hear from him and know how we can flow.
The family is demanding for the sum of 200 million naira as compensation. The chairman of the panel, Justice Suleiman Galadima, adjourns the case to December 15th.
Let's look at the procedure. We'll start from the composition of the Police Service Commission. The Constitution actually provides for a 9-member board. We will activate the full the membership of the board, and we're going to bring in people that are stakeholders in human rights and policing activities in Nigeria. Groups like the Nigerian Bar Association will now be on the board of the Police Service Commission. The Human Rights Commission itself will be on the board. Even the Independent Corrupt Practices Commission, ICPC, we are proposing a board chairman that would, his tenure will be for a fixed term of 5 years. So he's going to be fixed, and he will not be distracted with looking for reappointment. And of course, there's going to be a woman on the board, and it must be a woman that is vested and well knowledgeable about domestic violence and violence against women. And of course, when you come to the police complaints procedure itself, what we're looking at now is a way that the Police Service Commission will have representatives or offices in the 36 states. We're looking at a complaints procedure that would not necessarily rely on the police force itself. It will be a situation where you can imagine the kind of justice you will get if you go to a police service where the officer that is accused of human rights violation is the same police station where you go to turn in your complaint. What we're saying is that the Police Service Commission should be able to coordinate the process of collecting all the human rights violations, and then obviously go through a process of investigation. And while that investigation is going on, the police officer that is being accused of whatever the violations are will be removed from customer-facing duties and put on a back office role, maybe a desk duty, remove the gun. You don't empower a policeman who has been accused of human rights violation and still keep him on the beat. But the critical thing to point out is that this bill is actually going to be, in terms of the mode of engagement, it's going to be a bill that will be good for the police and also for the accusers, for the citizens. We're looking at a fair process that will protect the policeman while investigations are going on, and also give confidence to the complainants that, look, this system is going to be transparent, it's going to be outside of the police control, and there will be a recommendation at the end. It's not just looking at the young people of Nigeria. I think that human rights violations cut across. We have elders, we have politicians, we have pressmen, we have the youth, we have everybody in Nigeria has at one time, or hopefully this bill would be actually something that we're putting in for Nigerians, regardless of whether they're youths or whether they're, as long as you're a Nigerian, this bill seeks to protect you from human rights abuses from the police.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. Ethiopia's forces have captured 2 towns in the northern region of Tigray, where soldiers loyal to the local political party are fighting the central government. Tigray's leader confirmed the losses but said it was a temporary setback and vowed to defeat the government. Ethiopia's Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has said his army is advancing on the Tigrayan capital Mekelle. Hundreds of people have reportedly died in 2 weeks of clashes. Hundreds of migrants have been removed by police from a crowded dock in Spain's Canary Islands following a sharp rise in the number of people arriving there from Africa. A group of 225 people were evicted from the port of Gran Canaria on Tuesday, but thousands still remain. It follows protests over conditions at the port, which an immigration judge earlier described as inhumane. A total of 16,700 migrants have reached the Canary Islands so far this year. That's a rise of more than 1,000% on the same period last year, according to official data from the Spanish government. More than half of this year's arrivals took place over the last month. Storm Iota has reached Honduras after unleashing torrential floods and highly destructive winds in neighboring Nicaragua. President Juan Orlando Hernandez warned that all of Honduras is at risk after the storm ravaged Central America on its passage, causing swollen rivers to burst their banks, flipping roofs onto streets and killing at least 9 people across the region. The Honduran government has closed bridges and highways across the country while opening more than 600 shelters where some 13,000 residents are seeking refuge. Iota is the strongest storm on record to reach Nicaragua, bringing winds of nearly 249 kilometers an hour and flooding villages still reeling from the impact of Hurricane Eta 2 weeks ago. It's the first time 2 major hurricanes have formed in the Atlantic basin in November since records began. Thai protesters and police have clashed again in the worst violence the country has seen since protests began in July. Demonstrators pushed past barricades outside Parliament as police fired back with water cannon and tear gas. Over 50 people have been hurt so far, some with gunshot wounds, but the police have denied they had opened fire with live ammunition or rubber bullets. Thousands of anti-government demonstrators met outside Parliament calling for constitutional change, curbing the powers of the King and the removal of the Prime Minister. Lawmakers in Parliament are discussing several proposals for constitutional changes, although most leave the King's powers untouched. Close to 90,000 sexual abuse claims have been filed against the Boy Scouts of America Association. The number far exceeds the initial projections of lawyers across the United States who have been signing up clients since the Boy Scouts filed for bankruptcy in protection in February in the face of hundreds of lawsuits alleging decades-old sex abuse by Scout leaders. Founded in 1910, the organization has been overwhelmed by hundreds of claims after several states removed legal hurdles that had barred people from suing over old allegations of child sexual abuse. The Democratic Republic of Congo has announced the end of an almost 6-month Ebola outbreak in the west of the country. Health authorities are reportedly looking to apply lessons from the successful response to the fight against COVID-19 in Africa. The DRC's Ebola outbreak, which infected 130 people and killed 55, emerged in June, just weeks before a separate Ebola epidemic in the country's east drew to a close. That one had killed more than 2,200 people, the second most in the disease's history after the outbreak in West Africa in 2014. The British government has announced that new cars and vans powered wholly by petrol and diesel will not be sold in the UK from 2030. The plan is part of what the Prime Minister Boris Johnson has called the country's Green Revolution. Critics argue the £4 billion allocated is far too small for the scale of the challenge, but Mr Johnson says the plan will mobilise £14 billion worth of government money, with as much as 3 times that amount coming from the private sector, and create and support 250,000 highly skilled green jobs in the next decade. And finally, a radiologist in the morning and an artist by night, 62-year-old Egyptian Ahmed Hassan is using matchsticks to create dazzling replicas of famous landmarks. His home in the city of Gerza is full of artwork representing the ancient and modern wonders of the world, exclusively made out of matchsticks. Each piece takes him months to finish. His works include the Notre Dame de Paris Cathedral, Alexandria's Lighthouse, the Library of Alexandria and the Tower Bridge in London. He participated in some exhibitions in Egypt and has donated some of its artwork, including the replica of the Suez Canal. However, he says he does not plan to sell any of his pieces. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel studios in Lagos.
It has been, just this year alone, we've had to combat Lassa fever, COVID-19, and now yellow fever. Well, maybe we didn't see COVID-19 coming like a lot of other countries, but for Lassa fever, yellow fever, they're not new to Nigeria's health system. I mean, the NCDC says over time, just this year alone, we've had 76 people die across 3 states as a result of this disease. But the big question is, didn't we see this coming? I mean, what did we miss and how can we make it better? We have joining us 2 commissioners for health across 2 states that are dealing with yellow fever currently in Nigeria. Dr. Onoye Modi is a commissioner for health, Delta State. It's joined by Dr. Ikechukwu Obi, the commissioner for health in Enugu State. Good morning and thank you for joining us on Sunrise Daily. Well, this is a question for both of you, but I'd like to begin with Dr. Modi. Here we are again dealing with yellow fever, and I mean, people have died. It's really sad. And the first question a lot of Nigerians usually ask is, didn't we see this coming? I mean, this is not a time to throw around blame games and all that, but it's important to know how we dropped the ball, where we missed it. So regarding the case in your state, how did we get to this point?
Now, we saw this coming. Let me tell you how. There is a planned mass vaccination involving some states, like Delta, which was programmed to begin about the 20th of November. So plans were already on ground, adequate plans were on ground to take off mass vaccination of every eligible Delta. And this was came before them. And that is why, as we handle this phase in the first 2 development areas, we're already working towards actualizing the plans we had for the rest to the 3 local government areas. And so there were plans before that. These cases came in earlier than when we were to begin the mass vaccination campaign.
Really, this emergency activation once things happen, once maybe a case, a suspected case is discovered. Do you have such in your state?
Oh yes. The moment we got the information, what we did was get into the communities involved actually, to try to first of all engage with the community and be sure of what was going on. It's never the news came in as mysterious deaths. So they felt those deaths were mysterious. And so when they reported, we went to the community, had materials with them, and then thereafter set up the necessary machinery to deal with what our suspicions were. We didn't think initially of any particular ailment. Because of the age bracket involved, 15 to 25 years, most of them were everything of substance abuse. We thought of Lassa fever because we're about the of Lassa. We also had a threat on our mind of yellow fever, and so we set out trying to identify what was the primary cause of these unexplained deaths.
Let me bring in Dr. Obi now, just to get his opening thoughts on this. I suspect you will also say you saw this coming, but people have died. So the question now is, what could you have done better, with the benefit of hindsight, to maybe save those lives and ensure that the casualty was reduced?
Okay, good morning. Yes, good morning. The truth of it is that we must understand that when it comes to public health issues, for example, yellow fever belongs to one of the diseases you call a disease of public health importance. And the truth of it is that there is always the emergency preparedness and response states for most ministries of health from the federal to the state level also. When you're dealing with diseases that are endemic, sometimes even though you are prepared, it doesn't necessarily mean that you might always be able to cover every single ground at all times. But you see, emergency preparedness is the key, so that once things like this come up, then you can immediately swing into action as much as is possible.
Okay, Dr. Obi, it's been quite tricky catching your trail of thoughts there with the network acting up. But we'll try to reconnect with you such that we can get what you're saying and make some sense of what you're doing in your state. But we'll go to break right now. When we return, we'll take up some issues, especially as it concerns Kogi State. Yesterday, there was a controversy about the death toll. Is it in Kogi? Is it in Enugu? But we'll go on this break right now. And when we return, we'll take on the issues. Please stay with us. So, Dr. Obi, there's been that controversy about the deaths that were reported. Was it in Kogi State? In fact, a member of the State Assembly said over 50 people died in that particular community of Alamaboro. But the commissioner says that it happened on the Enugu side. So, trying to make sense, really, what exactly played out? Is it 50 people? Is it over 40 people? Did it happen in Kogi or in Enugu? If you can hear me, Dr. Obi. Obi, can you hear me? Okay, I think it's much better now. So let me just take the question again. I guess you probably didn't get my question. I'm asking, just yesterday, reports came out about over 50 people dying of yellow fever in a particular community in Kogi State. The commissioner said, well, it didn't happen in Kogi State, that it happened in Enugu State, right? So we need to know, 50 people, is it over 46 people? What exactly played out and which other communities have been affected?
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Okay, so and they were in communities in one of our local governments, Ibweze North local government, and those communities were Eteuno and Umoku communities. Now they happen to share border with Kogi State, and this activated our own emergency response. And when we now responded and connected with others, we discovered eventually through confirmatory tests that we are dealing with yellow fever. Can you hear me?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Yes, so we are dealing with yellow fever, and we have confirmed that it's yellow fever that we're having, and we had reported cases on the Enugu side. Yes.
How many cases, how many deaths have you recorded on the Enugu side?
Now, if for deaths, we have had reported right now from our situation reports. We have reported a large number of deaths in quite a large number of LGAs. But you see, we are still calling them probable deaths, probable deaths, or deaths from probable cases of yellow fever, because we have not confirmed that all these deaths were yellow fever related deaths. The number of deaths we can confirm as due to yellow fever are 2 deaths. Actually, 2 deaths that we can confirm are from yellow fever, and we have confirmed 19 cases of yellow fever based on the PCR diagnosis, and can only confirm 2 deaths from yellow fever. So the reports of strange deaths are ongoing. Now it's very likely that a lot of the deaths we have reported out of the 127 may have been from yellow fever, but we cannot confirm that all of them are from yellow fever. So it's better we can confirm the 2 deaths that we're sure from samples that were taken that are from.
Specifically speaking, the communities that that share boundaries with Kogi State, with Olamabaro, how many suspected deaths or strange deaths have been recorded in the community that shares a border with Kogi, talking about the Olamabaro community? Dr. Obi, seem to be having a challenge with your connection, but we'll come back to that in a moment. Hi.
Yes, I wanted to ask Dr. Modi. Well, earlier you said that you saw it coming when my colleague asked you if we saw it coming, that these deaths and all of that. Specifically, what did you see coming? Because down the line you also say you didn't suspect initially any particular ailment, but that you saw it coming. What exactly did you see coming and when?
Now, nationally, there are planned yellow vaccination campaigns to cover our states, and Delta State is amongst the states that will begin in November. And these plans were made because over time, I think the last time we had coming in Delta was in the mid-90s. So there was only a program to vaccinate so that people will not contact the virus. But I said it
was necessary. Just a moment, Doctor. I'm wondering why it was necessary to do a mass vaccination, given that what we have always known is that people are vaccinated for yellow fever at birth, and it's once in a lifetime. So at what point did we stop vaccinating such that 30 people have died as a result of yellow fever in Delta State?
Vaccinations begin from 9 months. And I told you, there are routine vaccinations that they take, in the health centers. There are also campaigns that they take to persons who may not have, been exposed to vaccination. Like some persons have behavior, make them not to seek services like routine immunization. And I told you, the last mass vaccination was about mid-90s. And if you look at the age range of those involved in this particular case, you see that they are most likely those who may have missed out the regular routine immunizations, maybe because of the health-seeking behavior of their parents. And so that's why that would have happened. Now, vaccinating the entire population, of course, is very much necessary to give us, herd immunity, and that is proper and normal. And even the way we responded, the speed with which we responded was because we were already preparing, and so we leveraged on the preparations we had made.
If there was that significant response, Dr. Modi, from what we understand, there is a gestation period for yellow fever before it could get to the point of killing someone. We understand it takes something upwards of about a week or thereabout before someone could die of yellow fever. If that is the case, and you say that the response was quick enough, how come we were able to get up to 30 people die in Delta if your response was quick enough?
Initially, the committees thought that this mysterious death was because of other reasons. Reasons adduced to
Does that mean your emergency team didn't get there on time before they discovered the people began to hallucinate about what it could be?
By the time the information came to us, I think we had 15 deaths. That was on the 30th of October. And by the 31st of October, we were in the community. By that 31st of October, we already began active case search. And even thereafter, there was quite some resistance from some of the communities who still felt that these were not medical issues. And we need to, at that point in time, more robustly engage the community to enable us have access. And in that intervening period, persons that could have also been surveyed was their wives. And so it wasn't the fault of the medical system, but issues that had to do with the belief system in some of the communities.
Okay, I think we have Dr. Obi back now. As we wind down on this conversation, I was asking earlier, Dr. Obi, that how many deaths were recorded, strange, unaccounted for deaths in that border community with Alamabaro in Kogi State? How many strange deaths were recorded on your side of that border?
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Okay, so for the number of deaths, I have said that to determine the numbers of strange deaths, yes, in the initial reports were of 50 and above, the numbers of strange deaths. And like Dr. Modi has said, the issues of health-seeking behavior are real. And a lot of times, we have an emergency reporting network that has to deal with the health system. If people do not report to the healthcare system in the primary healthcare facilities at least, it becomes difficult for the for infectious diseases surveillance and response to be initiated. So a lot of times it's health-seeking behavior of people that has to do with a lot of things. Belief systems, people stay away from hospitals thinking that they will get better care from herbalists and from patent medicine vendors sometimes. So but if they do not report to the health center, it's difficult to determine that a particular type of illness. That is why the first report we had from Enugu State was that we were dealing with strange deaths, that the symptoms resembled diseases of public health important. Then we went ahead to determine what particular disease we were dealing with.
Right, Dr. Ikechukwu Obi, the Commissioner for Health in Enugu State, thank you so much for your time, as well as Dr. Onoye Modi, the Commissioner for Health in Delta State. We'd like to appreciate you and wish you the very best in this battle. Well, let's turn our attention to a matter that has been trending for a while now, and it concerns pensions for ex-governors and their deputies, maybe especially the ones that are now holding political offices or appointments. Don't forget, the Lagos State Governor made that announcement, and now we have the Kwara State Government also. In fact, that particular law was submitted just yesterday at the State Assembly. So we'll be speaking with the Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice in Kwara State in a moment, just to get a sense of what that law is about, some controversies that were raised, and what it means in general for the state. But that's in a moment. Please stay.
The violence we saw at the end of October 2020 is the most widespread carnage the state has seen in decades. Not since the SAP riot of 1989 have we experienced such a level of destruction. Every aspect of our life and livelihood in Lagos were affected. Government buildings, offices, public monuments, historical archives, public infrastructures, buses, and very sadly too, private properties, banks, investment houses, malls, shops, small businesses, police stations, private residences, and many more were not spared. Beyond the fiscal and the economic impact, there has also been the psychological damage, the fear, the terror, the helplessness that all the victims have left to deal with. The question about how or where do we start from? The violence has no doubt set our economy back by hundreds of billions of naira, and the impacts on our global confidence. We have, however, found hope and great strength in the offers of assistance from far and wide, which culminated in the constitution of the Lagos Rebuild Committee to coordinate our efforts to rebuild and upgrade our state. Let me assure you all that we will bounce back. We do not take it for chance, because this is who we are. This is what Lagos is, a resilient people, an irrepressible city. This is our history. This, we believe, is in our DNA. Here is a city that emerged from most unpromising beginning out of the gloom of a spiral lagoon and malaria swamp by dint of hard work, entrepreneurial energy, and creative excellence. Everything we see and we hold dear to today was built over the centuries. In the time that we have seen this setback and challenges of various kinds, the most prominent ones that we can remember was the Royal Navy bombardment in 1851. We've also seen the influenza epidemic in 1918. We saw the bubonic plague of the 1920s. Even the loss of the federal capital status that many assumed would severely downgrade the state of Lagos. Most recently, we also faced and we defeated Ebola in 2014 and the coronavirus pandemic of 2020, in which case, both two examples, we saw Lagos as the epicenter of the whole nation. In the face of all this, Lagos has always survived. And not just survived, it has thrived. We are a continental center of creativity and innovation, and will continue to be so. Thank you. Every one of these strengths and challenges I listed above ended up opening up into its affirmation an opportunity for a new kind of progress. One step backwards in the short term that paved way for 4 steps forward in the longer term. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, following the violent aftermath of the EndSARS protest, we constituted by an executive order a Lagos State Rebuild Trust Fund to be run by an 8-member committee. As a follow-up, a bill will be sent to the House of Assembly to enshrine the fund in the laws of the land and to give it the necessary backing to accomplish its mandate. This is the very reason why we have gathered here today, to operationalize this fund by mobilizing resources from far and wide, from the singular purpose of rebuilding and restoring our dear city and state. We seek to restore the infrastructure that were destroyed, to revive the energy and the confidence of everyone who has been affected by this great loss, to help restore the confidence of the people of Lagos in the infinity potential that Lagos portends. If and when the state government, and we believe we cannot do it by ourselves, we cannot do it alone, we need all the help that we can get, which is why we have invited you all here today, and we're grateful that you have all honored our invitation. We require the assistance of the federal government from both the executive and the legislative branches. I am delighted that Mr. Vice President, representative of the Senate President, the Speaker of the House of Representatives are all here with us today. I would also like to appeal to the National Assembly to take steps to set aside funds for this task of rebuilding and restoring Lagos in the 2021 appropriation bill being deliberated upon currently by the Assembly. This fund does not necessarily have to be for Lagos alone, and it should take into consideration that a few other states in the Federation too were impacted by the recent spits of violence. But of course, indeed, Lagos had the phenomenal and the larger parts of all of the crisis. Why are we seeking this privilege? Let me take us back to the text of the nationwide broadcast that was delivered by the then head of state, General Murtala Mohammed, on the 3rd of February 1976, here in Lagos. It was a speech in which he announced that the Supreme Military Council had accepted a recommendation to relocate the federal capital from Lagos to a new site in a more central area in the country, the late head of state said, and I quote, "Lagos will, in the foreseeable future, remain the nation's commercial capital and one of its nerve centers. But in terms of servicing the present infrastructure alone, the committed amount of money and effort will be too great that Lagos State will not be ready to cope. It will even be unfair to expect that the state to bear this heavy burden on its own. It is therefore necessary for the federal government to continue to sustain the substantial investment in this area. The port facilities and other economic activities in Lagos area have to be expanded. There is a need in the circumstance for the federal government to maintain a special defense and security arrangement in Lagos, which will henceforth be designated a special area. These arrangements will be carefully worked out and written in the new constitution." I end my quote. Even as far back as almost half a century ago, it was clear that Lagos required a special status, considering its importance to the economy and to the reputation of Nigeria. Today, with a population that is several times higher than the population in the 70s, which is roughly about 10 times the current population of this country, is still on the same mass of land that it was 50 years ago. As you all know, Lagos is today, like I said, home to over 1/10 of the entire population of Nigeria, even though it's less than 0.36% of the total land mass of this country, less than 0.4% of the land mass of this country. We certainly cannot go any south because that is Atlantic Ocean. Just 10 minutes from this place, you'll have entered another state. Just in 10 minutes drive from where we are, you'll have entered another state. That's how tiny Lagos is. With the recent large-scale destruction of property across the state, the basis for Lagos deserving a special consideration and an external assistance has assumed an unparalleled urgency and significance. There is no time to be wasted. I am therefore calling on the National Assembly to support us in this quest to rebuild and restore and to reposition the state even as we march into the third decade of the 21st century. On our part as a state government, we are determined to demonstrate our seriousness regarding this project beyond the establishment of this trust fund and the legislative backing that we're giving to it. We will also be making available a significant amount in our 2021 budget to begin the immediate rebuilding of Lagos. For us, it represents a credible and very important step in the rehabilitation and the restoration process, and it shows that we are willing as a government to put our money where our mouth is, so to speak. But let me reiterate that this our contribution, though very substantial, is still quite far off from what we require to make a dent on the burden that confronts us, which is why we have invited you here to join hands to support us, with the public sector taking the rightful lead in demonstrating the commitment. We have no doubt that the private sector will thrive to match that enthusiasm. I can see the private sector here being led by the governor of the central bank, who I must commend because he has other very important appointments. He has given us a commitment that he will come and lead from the front, and rally around all other sectors in that space. I want to thank you, Mr. Mefule, and I also thank Mr. Alhaji Aliko Dangote, who still spoke with me about 4 hours ago, but he has an important online, Zoom meeting with some partners in America, and he had asked that Dr. Monzo to come in here and represent him. I want to thank you very much, Alhaji, and special greetings to Alhaji Aliko Dangote. We believe that the challenging time and the responsive and responsible leadership, we will overcome. We can make greater impact through our collaborative efforts in the shortest possible time. There's an African adage that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, I think it's important we go together. And that's why we have brought all of you here together. Mr. Vice President, Right Honorable Speaker, ladies and gentlemen, today's consultative forum is meant to set the stage for all necessary public-private partnership and a collaboration required for this task of rebuilding and restoring Lagos to start. Let us work in the commonality of purpose to restore the glory of our state. You are important stakeholder, each and every one of you here. And I know and I can count on you as the Rebuild Committee reaches out to you for your support in the journey of rebuilding Lagos. Whatever investment we make towards this task will be for the good of all of us. This investment will go into the rebuilding and retooling the security architecture, strengthening our public transportation system, restoring the judicial and local government operatives. I dare say that my Lord Honorable Chief Judge is also worst hit. 22 of her honorable judges as we speak currently do not have a chamber that they can use to adjudicate and pass on judges. I want to thank the Honorable, my Lord Honorable Chief Judge of Lagos State for holding forth and for explaining to all of my honorable judges, just to bear a bit more patience with us, and we're not leaving them to this alone. Let me at this junction emphasize that transparency and accountability will be the foundational element in the implementation of the mandate of the committee. For these reasons, the fundraising and disbursement will have an oversight with trustees who have appointed FBN trustees at the first instance, and other trustees could also be joining, along with the board that will ensure that there is maximum accountability and value recorded for every naira that is raised. In this rebuilding process, we will also be asking ourselves some necessary questions. For example, we will seriously be exploring the use of technology to improve urban security and better safeguard all that we hold here, and to digitally preserve our historical archives that will until now have existed only on physical form. We have a duty in the rebuilding and to ensure that the new which will be replacing the old is befitting for a 21st century that we are all in today. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, the time is now to start the pledging and the collaboration. I look forward to our deliberations this morning, and even more importantly to the actions that will follow following the talks that will make all of the differences. Let me once again, on behalf of the people and the government of Lagos State, thank all of you for making out time to be here with us this morning.
That's the scene around the magistrate court in Yaba earlier, where there's been a disagreement between the family members and friends of the embattled EndSARS protester, Peter Romosele. They're protesting police refusal to allow them enter into the courtroom where Romosele is being arraigned. For almost 2 hours, he has been sitting in the Hilux van awaiting his arraignment. The security operatives had arrived in the area earlier today, blocking the road leading to the court premises where Romosele has been arraigned over allegations of aiding the EndSARS protests in Lagos. He's also accused of providing financial support to the youths who were involved in the EndSARS protests that was later used by rampaging residents as an excuse to destroy and loot property across the country. Our correspondent Kimba Omar is at the court and he brings us this update.
This is the scenario that we're being faced with at the court here in Yaba, where Peter Romosele is to be tried today. These right behind me are family members and friends They claim that they have been denied access to get into the courtroom, and that is a problem for them as it stands now. And it seems that they are really getting angry. Angers are flaring, and it's going to take maybe just a little bit of time to calm these frayed nerves. The police, we understand, are the ones who have asked that the family members and their friends cannot get into the courtroom. How this will play out in the next couple of minutes from now is what we're waiting to see. But as we stand and as we speak, it's not looking very good. But just to my right here is where Peter Eromosele is seated in that Hilux car. He's been there for over an hour now, waiting for the court session to begin. Will he get justice today is the question on the lips of many. Yimba Umar, Channels Television News.
Yeah.
Yes. Are you a relative of Evans? The popular Evans
Who is Evans?
That is Chukwu Dume Dume. That is his full name. I think I can't pronounce his full name. Chukwu Dume. Popularly known as Evans. Please, may I have that, sir?
I need this right.
No, let me have the FVC. Please show me this. Please. Line, the top line, this is the name. Who is this person? So far. He mentioned it and said. Your statement. Who is that person to you? It's your brother.
Can you give us the name on this?
Pronounce the name on your statement. No, pronounce that name from the beginning. Your talk to the last line. Yes. Who is that person?
I said it.
Sure. I have this statement. You know this person is popularly known as Evans. You never knew. But you knew he was arrested for kidnapping.
What actually happened?
Do you know where he was arrested for kidnapping?
I knew.
You knew. Yes. Chairman Sarah, the distinguished members of the panel. Evans was arrested because of the invitation of Mesobi, who led the team to arrest Evans. It was her that we were able to arrest Evans through her.
Put it to her.
Yes. Do you know it was through your invitation to police? We kept you for 5 days, and that was how we were able to arrest your brother. That led to the arrest of Evans. Are you aware?
It wasn't true.
It wasn't true.
It's a breath of fresh air for the embattled NSAS protester, Mr. Peter Eromosele, who has been granted bail in the sum of 1 million naira by the Magistrate Court in Yaba, Lagos. The court rejected the request by the police for an order to detain him for another 30 days to enable them conclude their investigation. But counsel to the defendant, Mr. Adeshino Ogunalo, argued that the facts were not weighty enough to support further remand, as his client has been in police custody for about 12 days. Before proceedings commenced, there was a disagreement between Mr. Aromosele's family members and friends who protested the police refusal to allow them enter into the courtroom while he was made to sit in a Hilux van outside the court. Mr. Aromosele is accused of providing financial support to youths who were involved in the EndSARS protests that were later hijacked by hoodlums as an excuse to loot and destroy property across the country.
Victory for the people of Nigeria, victory for the youth of this nation, that no intimidation. I see them as the indomitable youth of Nigeria, and this is the first sign and the victory for the youth of Nigeria.
While we were in court, I was looking at you, it seemed to suggest that you were praying.
Yes, I was praying because God rules in the affairs of men, and I know that the people we are dealing with, they are the generation of Herod, the generation of Pharaoh. That's what we have in this nation. So I have to call the higher power, the one that rules in the affairs of men, the one that had their hearts in his hand. And I called upon him, and he answered me as always. And I'm very grateful. Thank you, Jesus.
They've come to ask for his remand for 30 days, pending investigation according to them. And according to them, he's going to be investigated and prosecuted for incitement. They are trying to criminalize protests and all that. And we told the court that you've used 11 days to arrest him, you mean you've not investigated enough, you want to derogate from his fundamental rights enshrined in the Constitution. The judge agreed with us. The bail conditions looks a bit tough, but not too tough. We hope it could be better. One, that there should be two shorties. The shorties should be blood relations, family members, and then one should have landed property, and then they should be taxpayers, and their bond is 1 million naira. Not that they're going to pay. It's not security for bail. It's an undertaking that if the gentleman should run away from trial, the shorty will pay 1 million naira.
At the end of the video with this, may you leave your comment below. May you tell me what you think concerning this messy, broken English. Like I did try to change a lot of things like before. I did not play video for a long time, but this time I really would like to see me, so many people don't come at me. This time they always play video, they relax. So messy, broken English now, I think it's a special one for me. That's why I think maybe tell me your opinion concerning messy, broken English. Before we go comment, I will not say shout out for the people who will say leave comment for messy, broken English. Now the people that do this. The first message go from Sobo. Sobo, thank you so much for the message you left. Sobo said, good, thank you, well, good. That was what Sobo said. Oh, yeah, good, thank you, well, good. Thank you so much, Sobo, and I really appreciate you for watching. Will I say Netherlands because Sobo does not speak English. Sobo is one of my colleagues from work and has been supportive. Sobo always watch my video when I upload video and he leave this comment. So Sobo, ik wil zeggen, dank je wel voor de bericht die je had gelaten. Ik ben heel bedankt en groetjes naar uw kinderen. And the second comment is also Sobo again. Sobo watched this video plenty time and he come back again and give another comment. Sobo, ik heb de tweede bericht gezien die je hebt gelaten. Je hebt gezegd, goed, dankjewel. Dat betekent dat je komt naar mijn kanaal, dat je kijkt mijn video altijd. Heel bedankt, hè. Good. Dankjewel, Sobo. So, the other one is, let me see who is the next one. The next one is Pen Cover Comedy. Pen Cover Comedy, I just want to tell you thank you for making a comment in Messy Broken English. This is Messy Broken English. Messy Broken English is not supposed to talk correct English. Okay, I just want to tell you thank you. Say you leave comments. I beg me and check and heart. I really appreciate you. Subscribe to Pencover Comedy if you like the channel. Pencover Comedy be this. And the other one, the next one, the person name now Sang King. Well, I call your name Sang King. And Sang King say, hello, you are very beautiful, very good to support back, and fourth thanks. Thank you so much. So you come watch Mercy Broken English. I really appreciate. Make una subscribe to the channel. So I don't see another comment, and these other comments when the person Lim say amazing job, keep it up, stay foxy, SD. Wow, that one a nice comment. Thank you so much, Lim. I appreciate you saying you come watch Mercy Broken English. You can follow Lim and subscribe to my channel. So the other comment, my goodness baby 77 TV channel. Now I repeat, goodness baby 77 TV channel. Now I don't read this wonderful comment. It say amazing contest and great entertainment. Beautiful lady, keep it up. Thank you so much. You can follow the channel and subscribe to the channel. You will see the next one. So the next shout out go to Slim Michelle. Slim Michelle says, hey sis, nice shouts out. Thanks for shouting my page. Appreciate. I really appreciate Slim Michelle. And if you guys don't know Slim Michelle, this is who she is. You can check her out and follow her and subscribe to her channel. Thank you so much, Slim Michelle. And also, like I said, I'm very happy that you are able to come and watch Mercy Broken English, and God bless you. Mimi TV. This is Mimi TV Belgium. So if you guys have not heard about this name before, Mimi TV lives in Belgium and in Antwerp, and she's from Mechelen or Ghent. Sorry, I don't know which one, but I just want to give shout out to you and tell you thank you. When you take on watch my video, when you take on subscribe to Mercy channel, and I really appreciate. And Mimi TV say, oh my God, may his soul rest in peace. So the Mimi TV channel be this. Make sure subscribe to her channel and also follow her. So the other message for shout out, it goes to Tamyong Wubong. Tanya Wubong, I just want to say thank you. I want to tell you thank you for the support. When you subscribe to my channel, and also when you come watch my video and leave message, and I really appreciate. And the message when he leave, he say she is amazing. I love her show so much. Whoa, I really appreciate. Thank you. So my channel be this. If you know me before, maybe check him out so that you feel subscribe to the channel. Follow up. Thank you. This next shout out goes to Grace for Living. Wow. Grace for Living, I really appreciate say you come Mercy Broken English. Thank you so much, and for the wonderful message you will be saying you leave. Grace for Living, leave message. You say, how are you doing, my beautiful sister Mercy? Your program is amazing. Wow. The quality of it alone is incredible. Good. Please continue to bless us and advise us. We love you so much, sis. The haram can be helpful, but sometimes our body is very tired too. Okay, you know what, community she dey try to talk about. You remember say for Mercy Broken English as 7, I talk about how I take tire, say I no fit wake up. And I just, when the alarm for 6 o'clock reach, I say make I sleep reach 6:30. So now wetin she dey try to talk. I see say you watch that praise well. Thank you for your comments. Continue. The message never finish because the message no go. He say, I love the beautiful red dresses, ladies in love. Oh, you are right. That dress, you know say the way I talk and say I be almost late, so I don't get choice. I just take that dress. I say I don't care whether I don't wear that dress before. I will wear it again so that I don't go late for work. 1 point. Thank you, Grace, for mercy. And also, the message never finished. It's still long. May you continue again. No. You know, say I don't call your name now Grace for mercy in place of Grace for living. When I say now, we won't change your name Grace for mercy. Grace for living is for me. Because my name is Mercy, let me be your put down Mercy. I say I love that name, but the name is my name, but I enjoy my name. So we will reach further again. You say awesome shout out sis, and I'm speechless sis. I am forever grateful sis. We love you sis. Many blessings. Wow. And the last comment we see the way I hold my heart. Thank you so much, sister, for the comment when you leave. I'm also grateful. I really dey happy say you dey always follow me. You know, say I'm supposed to put video on Sunday, but the editing no finish on Sunday, no make me put am. Okay, I'm supposed to put on Sunday, no finish, I can't put on Monday, but even if they post on Sunday also, you still come on Monday again. You still come after day again, come still leave comments. That was yesterday. Thank you. So now the channel be this. Make una subscribe to her channel and then follow her. She dey talk about prayer, she dey pray, she dey talk the word of God. I feel call her woman of God. So you wanna check her out. The next one go to Tinalaye TV. Tinalaye TV. She's a beautiful woman. She have a great channel. I don't enter correct English. Tinalaye TV na fine woman. She get nice channel. So if you know she be this, when I try follow her, when I see what she dey do. And also the comment when you say she leave, the comment means say George death is so sad and painful. That word when she talk, really talk well. And this George death, the way it touch everybody, even all over the world, everybody they demonstrate because of the death of George, and really very painful. And he said, God is watching, no justice, no peace. This is getting worse day by day. This comment is really powerful. Thank you for leaving a powerful comment for George, and also may he rest in peace. May George rest in peace. And thank you for subscribing to my channel, and also thank you for always passing by. God bless you, Sister Tinalaye. So let's go to the next. The last comment is Marvelous Sweet 411. Marvelous Sweet 411. I'm happy to. Please, can I continue? You guys should sorry for the noise of the children. So the last comment goes to Marvelous Sweet 411. Marvelous Sweet 411. I just want to thank you. I just want to appreciate you for taking your time. I won't tell you thank you. I won't appreciate you. My Mercy Broken English is so you take your time. Come support Mercy Broken English. Subscribe to Mercy Broken English. I really appreciate you. God will bless you. So now the channel begins. So when I try follow her, when I check her out, when I subscribe to the channel, when you hear the message you will leave for Mercy Broken English. Marvelous Sweet 411 say, I am happy to see that you are showing love, shouting out your friends here on YouTube. Appreciate that. That is very good, my sister. Oh, thank you for that wonderful comment you leave. I really appreciate me also. Even for you to come my channel, you know. After all these years, you still come my channel. Thank you. God bless you. So before I go end this video, I just want to tell you and say thank everyone who get the time to watch this Mercy Broken English. So if you never subscribe to Mercy Broken English, you know when you miss this fantastic video we say I upload every week. Try to subscribe. When you subscribe, don't forget to put the notification bell, because now that bell will tell me whenever I upload video on YouTube. And also, thank you for joining. If you never join, don't forget to join Mercy Broken English. And I will tell you Mercy Broken English. Music, Mercy Broken English. Mercy Broken English. Mercy Broken English. What you say? Mercy Broken English. Subscribe. I don't put that one sugar when I always have. Subscribe. Okay. Mercy Broken English. So now I will tell you bye bye. See you now for next video.